Greetings and welcome to Remnant Speaks. I'm your host, the Reverend Dr. Coach J, coming at you live from Remnant Fellowship, that place that has a special space for young adults. I want to thank each of you for tuning in and turning us on as we talk about the things that are important to our people, our nation, and our community. As you know, you could have been doing 1,000 other things, but you decided to spend just a little time with Remnant. And because you've done that, I want to let you know, we wholeheartedly thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak into your life, to pour into your soul, and hopefully help you walk over that bridge of troubled water. As you know, Remnant Speaks is a free and open discussion surrounding our thoughts, our theologies, our teachings, in hopes of connecting our young adults to our larger audience of people. Right now, young adults seem to be on the sideline, but we know that they are the most powerful people on the planet right now. So Remnant Speaks is not a gotcha podcast. Remnant Speaks is more of a dialogue, not a monologue. And so we're looking to do this evening is to do what we always do. And that's to engage, nourish, restore, and equip our young adults for Christian service. And for some reason or another, some people believe that all you get is people who only believe in Jesus. Well, yeah, those are good people. But there's also other people in the world that can pour into you that help you have a better understanding of the world. And tonight, we have one such gentleman that can do both. And we'll have another one that's joining us a little later. But for right now, I want to give my man, Coach Rick Francis, the opportunity to introduce himself to the Remnant family and tell us a little bit about himself. Rick?
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Dr. J, Dr. Coach J. Livingston, for inviting me this evening to be a part of your podcast. Like Coach said, my name is Rick Francis. I'm a retired educator, coach. I've coached in Clayton County, coached at Lovejoy High School. I also coached at Tri-Cities High School. I also coached at Sandy Creek High School. So I've been around the block a few times in terms of the coaching profession and teaching. I'm glad that Coach J asked me to be a part of this podcast because there's various things that over the years have been extremely passionate to me. Before I get into my passion, I want to let you guys know that I've been in Georgia for 32 years. I'm originally from Bronx, New York. It was a blessing for me to move from the Bronx to Georgia because it gave me an opportunity to expose my kids to another way of life. I was a single parent for many, many years. I had a son, and I have a daughter. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later on if time permits. But again, I am pleased to be here, and hopefully whatever I say will touch a nerve in you or stimulate some thought and conversation. And hopefully Coach J will have me back so that we can continue the conversation. Coach?
Most definitely. You know that you're wanted and you can be here anytime you want. All right. So let's get this thing popping, okay? For those of you who may not know, me and Rick go way back. So the other day, we were out on the golf course hitting some balls. And just like we always do, we were just kicking it and talking. And it struck a nerve, I guess, in both of us, which is what's happening with our people, what's happening with our community, what's happening with our nation. These were all the kinds of conversations that we were having. You know, sometimes we talk about other things that don't make no sense, but on this particular day, you know, it struck a nerve, I guess, in both he and I. And so I asked him to share some of his thoughts because I thought they were so wise and they were so saged in his understanding of the situation of our people. So I thought that we might have an opportunity to talk about what do we do to help our Black community? So what is that about? So Rick, why don't you tell the people what are some of your general thoughts of where the Black community is and maybe where you think we need to be headed?
Well, there's a plethora of things that I hold near and dear to my heart in terms of reaching our people. When I was in the Bronx, I was affiliated with an African history group called Sons and Daughters of the Sun. And if you know anything about any of our historians, Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakanin, Ivan Van Sertima, John Henry Clark, I sat at the foot of these guys back in the 80s. And I just absorbed all the knowledge. It was like somebody opened up the Golden Gates and just poured a host of knowledge about self into me. One of my first teaching jobs also was in a prison for juveniles, a Spofford Juvenile Detention Center in the Bronx. The staff that we had there, everything we taught from an Afrocentric standpoint. We started it out that way. Now, when we were there, we were dealing with murderers, rapists, drug dealers. We'd see them on the news the night before. And the next day they're sitting in our classes. Actually, it's a place where Mike Tyson was when he was a juvenile. So we were dealing with some tough characters and we had to get their attention. So the teachings of Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark was also implemented into us disseminating the knowledge that we had to disseminate to our students. One of the things that taught me, I'm watching the process, and I see when we start teaching kids about themselves from a historical standpoint, if the messenger is on point, you have their attention. So we had sisters, we had brothers that had a wealth of knowledge about our history. Not his story, but our story. And what did we notice? We noticed that once we gave them that little bit of knowledge initially at the beginning of the lesson, now the behavior started to change. We had their attention. They started doing better academically. People from the outside, bleeding heart liberals. And when I say bleeding heart liberals, I don't need to go any further because you know where I'm going from a racial standpoint. They would come in and they'd say, you got kids passing the GED at 14 and 15. You can't do that. Oh, whoa. We're saving lives. It doesn't matter. You got to tone it back. You got to pull it back a little bit. So we continued to do what we did because we understood that if these kids get out and if they have knowledge of self and that self-pride is built up, that the world is their oyster. And there's a host of things that they will be able to do.
Well, now, Rick, one of the things that you just mentioned is another railroad track parallel for me, because I spent 6 years at OACA Secure Center over near Rochester, and it was a youth prison for young adults, for the youth. It was a part of New York State Division for Youth, and the conversations that we would have over in OACA dealt with that exact same thing. Helping the young people that were there to understand who they were and whose they were. One of the things that was challenging, however, is that you had almost a plethora of individuals that had different viewpoints. You had the 5%ers, you had the Black Moors, you had, several different kinds of other organizations that was putting knowledge in the head, but also leading them in a direction. So now we've got some kids that are coming out of these places, but not just the places of institution, but just in our community as a whole, the high schools and what they're picking up from their culture. So how do we get to a point where we can provide them with a singular, if possible, cultural, if necessary, direction to follow that's truthful, universal, and effective in changing wayward behavior?
First of all, you're right. We have to be truthful. We have to let the individuals and the students and parents, because this is not just one dimension. We have to reach the entire community. And we have to be truthful about the fact that there's a host of things that we're doing in our community that we're not doing well. I look at, a lot of times I'll focus on the music. I'll focus on athletics. And sometimes when I'm looking at that, I think in our community, those are the only things that we feel we can be successful at. When I listen to the music, and not all of it, and I'm talking about rap music now, so I need these young brothers and sisters to pay attention. When I hear you in your music calling sisters out of their name, when I hear brothers talking about shooting other brothers, committing violent acts against our people, and kids walking around and they're regurgitating all this that they're hearing, it affects their psyche. So one of the things we have to do, we have to be extremely truthful about what we're experiencing in our community and what we're doing in our community that's being detrimental to our health. And speaking on athletics, as a former coach, when we talk about student athlete, we don't say athlete student. I would always tell my players, your primary focus here at the school is to get an education. What we're doing on the court is not really all that important. I'm providing this service because I know this is something that we all enjoy doing. But at the end of the day, when you walk out of these out of this school door with your diploma, I want you to be able to say, I gained something from the sport that I played, but in terms of being in Coach J's, let's say you were a science teacher. In terms of being in Coach J's science class, I gained and I prospered more from that than anything I could have done on the athletic field. So we have to make sure that when we send our kids to school, that that's the whole focus. Not coming out and playing AAU ball or playing Pop Warner football and spending 3 and 4 hours on the field practicing that athletic craft. But then when you get home, you're too tired to do your studies and do your homework. So we have to turn that around. We have to be honest with ourselves, because one of the things, another thing that really made me proud, and there's been a host of them over the years from various players and students. One of my basketball players, and they all think they're going Division I. They all think that they're going to play college ball.
Yeah.
This young fella, I don't think anybody in my program loved playing ball more than him. But when he graduated from high school, he had to look himself in the mirror, and he had to be honest with himself. And I was proud of this brother because the honesty kicked in, and what he did, he said, I got to go the vocational route. So he went to a vocational school and took up a trade in plumbing. Now the brother's unionized. He's traveling the world because he's making money. Hopefully one day, and I'd like to touch on this also, he can connect, and he's got a nice young lady that he's dating that went to Lovejoy also. And I want to connect on the importance of relationships. But I'm proud of him because the light finally came on at the 12th hour. Mm-hmm. And he said, I got to go left instead of going right with this basketball thing. And I got to be conscious of what's going to happen to me and my future as time goes on.
So as you talk to them about the truth of a thing or the truth of things, and you kind of feel like you lose them because that truth is so stark and it's so real, and it becomes real, for real. And they go, nah, I don't want to do that. I'm going to keep my dream. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm just going to have to find another way to get out of the situation that I'm in. And I think what we do, and I'm just asking from a truth perspective, we have some in our community who are being elevated and have been elevated through their parents and all that their parents have done. And then you've got some that are not, that's not elevated through their parents or whoever it is that's within their community or their culture. So we got these two disparities. So the truth might fit one group, whereas it doesn't fit the other group. So how would you suggest we work this truth so that it provides them both with the encouragement to move forward, those who have, as well as those who have not?
What I would do is I would provide some encouragement to both groups. Okay, if you're gonna follow this dream, understand that the dream may not come to pass. And if it does not, what's the second step? See, because a lot of times we only have one step. And when we talk about athletic sports, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, we putting all our eggs into that one basket. So you must have an alternative plan. You must have an alternative plan. So I would say, if you're going to go that athletic route, okay. But when you if you're fortunate enough, guys and ladies, if you're fortunate enough to get a scholarship to help you with your education or to help you hopefully achieve your goal, keep your eye on the prize. And I'm going to give you a little story. My daughter was fortunate enough to go to Alabama State on a volleyball scholarship. The week we signed the letter to go to Alabama State, letter of intent, she tore a meniscus, but she was already locked in. So when she got there, her whole first year, she was on a medical red shirt. So we were initially, if everything went well, she was locked in for 5 years. Or, if everything went well, she was locked in for 5 years. So that year was a wash. The second year, she was okay. She didn't get a whole lot of playing time. I called, how'd everything go? Oh, it went well, but I didn't play. Okay, so that year went by, it was just like that the entire year. Second year, third year, she didn't get a whole lot of playing time. I said, look, don't get it twisted. We are not there as an athlete. We're there as a student athlete. So whether you play or not, that's not important to me. What's important to me is that you walk away from that institution with a degree. I said, I will come to your games and support you, whether you get on the court or not. It doesn't matter. I will be there, I'll cheer as hard as I can for your teammates, but I want you to understand the primary focus and the thing that's going to get you over the hump in life is that degree. So I would tell them, all right, you stay the course, but understand, major in something that you can major in so that you could provide a viable living for yourself and your family when you get one. But just stay the course. Stay the course and understand the most important thing is not the athletic sport, but getting that degree and figuring out what you want to do other than playing sport. And parents need, when I went to school, I made all the decisions myself. My mom and dad didn't know anything about basketball. They didn't know anything about filling out college admission forms. We had to sit down there together and take care of that. But in terms of making decisions, I did that all on my own. I'm telling parents now, if you have kids that are participating in sports, sit down, have serious conversations with them, and also let them know, we got kids, like I said, they all think they're going D1. If we look at the numbers, I think 2% of the American population actually, well, first of all, 1% goes into the league in terms of basketball. 1% out of everybody in the world, basketball. So most individuals playing this sport's not going in the league. So we have to be real about that. I don't know what the numbers are in football. I'll give them 2%. But we have to be honest with ourselves and with our kids and let them know the world is your oyster. You and I talk, Coach. Coach Jay and I talk. And I told Coach, I said the only reason I went to college was because I wanted to, that's the only way I could have gotten into the league. Now, after I got there, various things happened. Knees went bad. What's my second plan? I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher because I think I got a message. I think I can use this sport to get my message across to the brothers and sisters in the community that, yo, it doesn't have to always be sport. I mean, sports is a vehicle to get you where you want to go. And, you know, whether it's education, I have some individuals that play ball for me, and you know, William Belton. I don't know if you remember William.
I do.
William Belton now. I got LT Lockett, who works for the cardiology department for the Boston Celtics. I have John Beckett that loved basketball, like I called him the godfather of basketball, because he loved it that much. John Beckett's an assistant coach for the Denver Nuggets. So these guys were able to parlay the game that they love into something else. John's still affiliated with the game, but Sierra Scales, Lovejoy High School, played volleyball for him. She is Dr. Scales now. She's an optometrist. No, she's an orthodontist. She's a dentist. You know, so we have those stories. I got a plethora of individuals that played for me, not just basketball, not just volleyball, but let's talk about in the classroom. The message was always the same, but the message always came from an Afrocentric standpoint. You gotta love who you are, look in the mirror, embrace that melanated skin, and stay the course.
Is there a possibility for those individuals who did not do the college route, that did not get the associate's degree, that does not have the athletic ability, and where do we tell them to go, and what do we tell them to do to help not only themselves, but our community?
There's, you know, I mentioned vocational programs, and it's a shame. It's a shame because everybody is in college material. Everyone is in college material. I mentioned vocational programs. It's a shame that in Clayton County and other counties around the state, and really in the country, they have cut a lot of those programs out. I know for a fact because I have friends from New York that love ball, but they just wasn't good enough. And they went the vocational route. And while I was following that dream in terms of trying to get in the league, those brothers were working a 9-to-5 after they acquired and trained and developed that skill in either electronics or being electricians. My boy Chuck Jones, when computers first came out, he went to school 1 semester, college, because we all had that basketball dream. We all had that hoop dream. Chuck went for 1 semester, and then he just happened to be on the train going home, opened up the New York Daily News and saw there's a program. What, they're coming out with computers now. Well, Con Edison is hiring and they training. Let me make a phone call. 2 years down the road, both these brothers was locked in. I'm still following that dream. These dudes are riding around in big rides. Chuck linked up with a young lady who's his wife now, who was also in the computers. They had a house when I was still living in the projects with my mother, still following that dream, my mother and father. So I would say, and then I got to talk about Pop, who was an electrician. Work was unionized, worked for the housing, the projects, the housing development. I didn't even know what a BMW was. I'm going back into the 80s. Pop is driving around in a BMW, and we still jumping on the train and the bus. So when I look at those guys who also had a deep love for playing ball, but realized I have to do something, and they went the vocational route, and I would tell any young man, if you feel like you're just not college material, get into some kind of vocational pro. There's no shame to knowing how to, and I'm envious of guys that can build a shed or come in and do some HVAC work or electrical wiring and just doing all and plumbing. I'm envious of that. And it's a legitimate career. It's a legitimate trade that I think a host of these kids should also investigate. Because a lot of times, being that blue collar worker, at one point in time, when we were growing up, it was all about college, and there was a lot of brothers out there, and unfortunately, there was a lot of brothers out there that just wasn't college material. And unfortunately, a host of my friends, guys, I was just fortunate. They decided to go the negative route. And I hate to say it, but a lot of those brothers are no longer here. And I hear these stories in urban settings. I hear it all the time. So I would say, look for your pot of gold, not just on the athletic field, but also, maybe we can go to vocational.
Well, the ideal then is these opportunities are out there. There's some that have listened to the sage advice that you've given, that I've passed along to them, and that so many other teachers and administrators and family members have given them. But it doesn't seem to be enough because our Black community is still broken. You've got some that have gone on and they'll make millions and almost billions of dollars, and they'll give back. It's like I kind of love the ideal of LeBron having the school, building that school, and I love the ideal of them coming and paying for all of the student tuition for other kids that are in college. But for some reason or another, it seems like the ones that are still in our community, that's kind of been locked in, and they don't seem to have the ability to get out of the malaise that they're in. They don't seem to, what we're telling them doesn't seem to register or provide them with enough energy or encouragement to just keep on trotting along. And I think, which is what you've already said, they go left. And one of the things growing up in Buffalo with me, some of our smartest and brightest people that I knew were drug dealers. They could flip it. I mean, they had a business sense, but they could probably, and that's why that one of the movies that really struck me was with Eddie Murphy and Trading Places, because that seemed to be so true to me. Because most of the people that are now, of our people that are now encapsulated in the community and banging on the doors and can't seem to get them to open, or smacking on the windows and can't seem to get them to close, so the winds of life doesn't just blow them to pieces. So my concern then is, is it them not listening, or is it us not doing enough? What do you think?
Our community has been fractured. Our community has been fractured, and I've been an educator. I was an educator for 36 years. And yeah, Jay, I got to the point to where it was like beating my head up against a brick wall, because I'm giving you the formula for success. I'm giving you the formula for success, but it doesn't seem to be registering with too many of the individuals. I got the sum, but the overall majority of them wasn't absorbing what I was trying to bring to them. You and I had a conversation. I also want to touch on the family structure, because this is very important. When you talk about them not getting it, I think when and I'm going to go back to Sandy Creek, and when I was in Fayette County, and what I observed there, because individuals used to ask me, why are you staying in Fayette County so long? Why, you should come out and coach in South Fulton. We could run it, because you had a brother at Westlake, you had my man McRae at Creekside at the time. I forgot what brother was at Banneker, but they were trying to get me to come to the South Side. Well, I said, I'm conducting a study. They said, what you talking about, coach? I said, I'm conducting a study on how this educational thing is supposed to be ran. I said, I already know, I just need confirmation. So what did I get from that? I'm gonna go to the PTA meetings, Jay. So we talking about breaking this cycle. See, but everything rotates back over to education. So when I go to PTA meetings, and I was a PTA president at one time up in New York, the same problem I had up there in our community is the same problem we have here. But I'm gonna go to Sandy Creek now, which it was 30% African American and 70% white. I'm in the cafeteria, and a standing room only. Mothers and fathers in it, along with their students. Oh, whoa, what do we have here? Parents understanding, as taxpayers, I run this, and I'm taking an active role in my child's educational development. I don't need to come in here to no spaghetti dinners. I don't need to see anybody up on the stage singing. I want to know what you administrators and what you teachers are going to do for my child. Now, that's a collective effort. We're talking about mothers and fathers. Now, if they divorce, dads don't get it. They don't get a break. They don't get axed out. You got to show up also. So we need, in terms of correcting this thing, we need to get a collective effort from mothers and fathers that show their kids, because kids are watching. When kids see, oh, my mom and dad, wow, okay, they here, they going over there, they shaking hands with my science teacher. They're going to check out my math teacher. They're going to talk to my coach. Okay, they're involved. They're concerned. That's one of the things that we need to do, Jay. That's one of the things that we need to do. We have to come in and we have to be proactive in our child's life. Now, with that also being said, when you and I had lunch the other day, when Coach Jay and I had lunch the other day, one of the things we talked about was sacrificial lambs. You ain't gonna be able to reach everybody. And one of my teachers told me that, because when I was involved with that African history group, they said, Rick, we see the connection you have with the kids. Kibo Goyo, brother, was teaching us Swahili. And Kibo said, do not get disenchanted when you can't reach them all. Along this journey, you're gonna have some sacrificial lamb. And I'm listening to him. I'm like, yo, man, but I'm trying to get to everybody. And this was a brother much older than me. He said, Rick, you're not gonna be able to reach everybody. Unfortunately, Jay, what we have experienced in this country, unfortunate, the playing field has never been level for us. So we got to go the extra mile. Now, I'm not saying because we are resilient people. If we only realize that, we don't have to always err on the side of negativity. We can stay the positive route and show our kids a different way to achieve their goal.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think our current cultural leaders, community leaders, have become disenchanted because as they try to do the things that they're trying to do and they just don't seem to get anywhere? They got they're doing their grind, their noses to the grindstone, and they just keep working for us. And it seems as if though, no matter how hard they work, we seem not to actually benefit from their hard work. It's one, there's a theory that I learned some time ago when I was at OACA. It's called the broken glass theory, broken window theory, excuse me. And what would happen is there would be empty buildings. And if someone broke one window pane and nothing happened, sooner or later, another window pane would be broken. And soon, if nothing happened, they would all be broken. And then they started breaking all the window panes in all the buildings. So there was this one real estate person who owned the building. And of course, he also witnessed this. So when one of his building's window panes were broken, he would immediately go fix it. And then another one would break. He would immediately go fix it. Then after a while, the people kept saying, man, why you keep fixing all these window panes, man? All they're gonna do is keep breaking them. And he said, that might be true, but I'm gonna fix this one. And so the more people see that it's fixed, the less likely they are to break it. But if they see something that's already broke, they break it also. So that kind of theory in my head as a community leader, a pastor of people, a congregational love of people for my community and my people. Every time I see something broken, I tend to want to go to fix it because I may understand the sacrificial lamb theory, but if I can fix just that one, then maybe that one could fix another one. Now, I might not be able to fix them all, but I can fix that one. So somehow or another, I'm trying to get our young adults to understand that just because they're broken doesn't mean that they can't fix somebody else. And then by their fixing someone else, someone else might be able to fix them. So as leaders, as community leaders, you and I, and those of us who are on watching or listening to this podcast, how do we get our community leaders to take a stand and lead our community back to health? What's some of your thoughts on that?
Great question. Great question. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna talk to you about some of the brothers that I taught with when I was at the prison for juvenile. We would get together once a month. And these were all family men. We all had families, working hard, former ball players, most of them. But what we would do when we got together was we would talk about important issues. Now, this was just the men, this was just the fellas. We would talk about important issues and what we can do to strengthen our community. Now, we would come in, we'd also talk about relationship problems that we were having. We talk about our kids and some of their achievements and some of the struggles that they may have been having, even though we all had little kids at the time. But and I was the youngest of the group. And one day I'm sitting there and somebody was talking. And then when they finished, I said, yo, brothers, do y'all realize how important what we're doing right now is? I said, you got Black men here talking about positive things, positive issues, trying to solve community problems because we all live in the same community. One of the things I would say in terms of trying to knock down the walls that's been blocking us, that's been keeping us stagnant in our environment, is brothers need to sit down with other brothers. And I'm not talking about, you're out there, you're talking about women, and even though it's gonna probably revert back to that, but you talk about things that are pertinent to our community and what can we do as men to correct the problem. Right now, I believe in being with our sisters, and I'm locked arm in arm with our sisters, But right now, I need the brothers to take the bull by the horn and to realize when you being the man of the house, when you are the king of your castle, and you got your queen there and you loving on her like it ain't nobody's business. And your kids see that. And you coming from a place of positivity, that's one way that we can correct the problem. But the problem, and I'm telling you, it's therapeutic when you get brothers sitting in a room talking about positive issues and then going out into the community and trying to put it in action. That's what I did. After I left that job at Spofford, I also worked in the evening at the community center that I used to go to as a child. And I brought that African history group in there. And then in the evening, they opened up junior high school across the street from the building that I grew up in. My brother went to the junior high school. I became teacher in charge. But the brothers that came over there, they knew before you can get on the basketball court. The Puerto Rican brothers, they wanted to go in the auditorium. This is when breakdancing first started. Yo, Rick, when we going to the auditorium, we got the boxes out, we're gonna spin on our heads, we're gonna roll on our back, we're gonna listen to the music. I said, yo, y'all can do all that. But before you do it, we gotta hit the classroom. Some of you guys need additional tutoring. Some of you guys are gonna get this lesson on our history. Oh, Rick, whoa, this is non-negotiable. This is what we call tough love. It's not about breakdancing. It's not about playing ball. It's about strengthening that knowledge base, understanding who you are. You give me that, I'll give you this. Some of those brothers wind up doing positive things. And to this day, when I go back to the community in the Bronx, you don't think them young boys show me mad love? They haven't forgotten. Now, some of them fell off. It's that urban life. if you don't stay connected, if you don't, if you know, individuals in your world are not committed to the cause, then you might fall off and you're not hearing this message consistent. But going back, it starts with the brothers. One of the things that I'm really pleased of, because I've been doing this since the 80s, 81, I'm going back to. I've been doing this. I've been on my soapbox. I street spoke teaching history. They thought I was bugging. They thought I was going crazy because I'm a ball player. They all know me from playing ball. Now I'm on the soapbox out in the street talking about history. They telling my brother, yo, your brother's bugging. Oh, I just understand what we need in order to clean all this up. I got drug dealers over there that grew up with me, that's watching me. Yo, I want y'all this. I was playing ball with you guys. I'm no different. But something that I heard from maybe a brother that was in a group like I was in a group talking with other brothers. And we just sitting down talking, trying to figure out all the problems in our community. And I took that to heart and I took it back. That's why I became a PTA president of the school my kids were going to when they were babies. That's why when I first moved here, I was PTA vice president of the school my kids were going to. It was important for me as an African man to show my kids, when they come in and they see their dad there, could you imagine how that made them feel? I can't mess up. My dad is here. He's taking an active role in my overall development. So, Jay, I would say brothers need to get together, sit down, try to talk about what they can do to make their child's situation better. Make sure your kids see the way you treat their mothers, not calling them out of their names, treating them like the queens that they are. And then hopefully, Jay, hopefully, it ain't gonna happen in my lifetime because we're too embedded in this American system that just has not treated us well as a people. So it's gonna take strong brothers and sisters. And I gotta tell you, when I look at these sisters since George Floyd's death, the way these sisters are on the forefront and they coming in, strong foot soldiers, that's impressive. That's impressive. And when brothers can look at them sisters and say, yo, I need a queen like that on my arm, that's how I'm a roll. And whether they know it, let's talk about economics also, Coach. When you have a collective group, a man and a woman that's struggling together, but they looking to achieve various goals, that's when your economic development starts to grow. That's when you start getting things squared away on that economic level. If you're doing it as a unified group, that's a man and a woman. Imagine what, your kids saw you in Maryland out there getting it in. My kids saw me, I've been around the block a few times, but my kids saw me and their mother going out there getting it. And we were working as a collective front. Even though we were divorced, we were working as a collective front. So if we can get our community to do that, I think we could start to turn the tide. But I also think, Coach, that I am so adamant. You got a sister that just came out with a book, the 1619 Project we talked about. Mm-hmm. And she knows. I don't know why she was teaching at the University of North Carolina, but she's at Morehouse now because they didn't give her tenure. But the 1619 Project is about the history of the African here in America. And she wanted to implement that into the curriculum on a university level, but I would also say on a high school level, so that we could start teaching these kids the truth. And I know for a fact that when you start teaching kids that information, that is transformative. That's when you'll start to see change. Parents, as well as the educational system. We got to revamp that whole thing in terms of the knowledge that we're giving in our seeds.
Well, like it always happens, bro, Rick, when we have these podcasts, it seems like right when we get to the meat of the issue and we start to be able to expose some of the wrinkles and the challenges, bro, then it'd be time to go. So I gotta ask you one other question. This is our magic wand question. And the magic wand question is one thing that you can do in order to set the record straight or to help our community. You have a magic wand, you wave it, poof, and the people have to do it. That would be a magic wand, just getting some of our people to do what they're supposed to do or need to do. But you got this magic wand and you're gonna wave it around, and this is what you have to get them to do. What's the one thing you would make the members of the Black community do to help themselves? Boom, and they had to do it. What would that be?
Show love for your brothers and sisters. It's as simple as that, Jay. Show love for your brothers and sisters. I'm gonna tell you a story. When I first started, it was about my third year here or my fourth year here in Georgia. I went down to Savannah with 4 of my coworkers. My man, Dan Lorton. We were in Savannah at a teachers conference. And we walking on River Street. And every Black person I saw, I said, hey, how you doing, brother? How you doing, sister? How you doing, brother? How you doing, sister? And he said, Rick, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, go ahead. You ask me anything. He said, why is it that every Black person that you see, you always speak to and you always say, how you doing, brother, and how you doing, sister? I said, first of all, I see them as my brother and as my sister. And if I can share kind words with the brothers and sisters that come across my path, then I've had a full day. And hopefully I've shedded a little sunlight on their day. So to answer your question, if we can show love for each other, genuine love, I'm telling you, Jay, it works miracles. It works miracles. And I tell you what I know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this completes another episode of Remnant Speaks. I sincerely thank my brother, Coach Rick Francis, for sharing his thoughts, his views, and helping us to better understand what we might be able to do to improve our Black community. Now, the Remnant Speaks podcast, God willing and the creek don't rise, will be on every Tuesday night at 6:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please know that you always have a seat at this table, and you're always welcome to this podcast, as well as anything else Remnant Speak does. Now, I pray and hope that the blessings of God will be poured out from heaven, so much so that it overflows your cup and you have to drink from your saucer. I am the Reverend Dr. Coach J. I hope to see you next Thursday because you have just heard Remnant Speaks. God bless you. May heaven shine upon you. Peace.